Everybody, good morning. I'm excited to have everybody here. We've got Dennis Field with us from Greenline Creative. We'll introduce him in a minute, but excited to have him as part of our virtual meetup for November. Hope everyone's enjoying the lovely fall weather as we transition seasons here. Got to click on the right screen. So first of all, Fall Summit. Those of you who were able to make it to Philadelphia with us, I hope you guys had an awesome time. The reviews I heard from everybody was it was really awesome. Philly was a great city. Convene was an amazing host, and you guys were awesome as well. Really, the conference, the summit wouldn't have been anything without all of you participating in it. For me personally, it was one of the better summits that we've had. Just the interactivity between each other, the discussions that were had, friendships formed, networking. It was really great. So we're not sure where our next fall summit is going to be. We're looking at locations right now, but we are looking at probably some warmer climates. And we're going to have that information out hopefully by the end of the year, if not sooner than that. So definitely look forward to that. The plan right now is to keep it in the fall, as we've been doing. So we'll have the spring virtual conference around May, June time, and then we'll have the fall summit again later on in October, late September. So again, just thank you guys for participating in that. Hope everybody enjoyed that. If you weren't there, sorry we missed you. Definitely reach out to those that were there and find out what you guys missed. Of course, all of our conference events, code of conduct is very important to us. You can go to eeconf.com/code of conduct and find out all the information there. Essentially, what it always boils down to is don't be a jerk. We all love each other, care about each other. Expression Engine community is one of the best communities out there. And so, we just all want to take care of each other. So, which we mostly do. But if you're new to the community, make sure you check out that code of conduct. If anybody is breaking that code of conduct, or you feel anything's happening that shouldn't be happening, you can go to that page and fill out that form, and that will notify the EE Conference Committee immediately so that we can address those issues as quickly as possible. But we want to make sure that the integrity of our events is always upheld, and so that's super important to us. You can also ping us in the Expression Engine Slack under the EE Conference channel. We hang out there, so you can message us there or anytime if you have any questions about EE Conference events. Questions, as always, when it comes to the question and answer time, we always want you to share your audio and video and participate if you can, rather than just posting in the Q&A. We'll let you get on screen here, and you can ask your question and converse with us. If you're just not going to do it, if you refuse to share that camera, then of course please use the Q&A feature over in the chat. When you guys just put questions in the chat, they often get lost during the presentation. The Q&A just helps us moderate those, and so make sure that you are. The screenshot here says stage, but make sure you're on the session tab of the chat, and that you click on Q&A and then post your questions there. Dennis, I think he won't be able to see chat during the presentation. So we'll probably wait until the end of the presentation to answer those questions, unless he has time scheduled in the presentation to stop. But otherwise, we'll just do it at the end. So definitely compile all your questions there in Q&A. As always, we couldn't do these events without our sponsors. Nobody here had to pay anything to participate today. I appreciate the donations we did receive. Those are always super helpful to continue our efforts. But of course, the conference, the eConf committee, and all of our events are backed by our sponsors that make this happen. So definitely a big shout out to our gold sponsors for 2022, Cartthrob and Hop Studios. Our silver sponsors, Greenline Creative. Thank you, Dennis and Julie. Triple Nerd Score, Doug over there, always a great participator in the community. Our awesome bronze sponsors, W3 Care and IC360. And then our friends of EE Creative Arc and Mithra 62. So we really appreciate your support. We are coming to the end of the 2022 season. So we'll be looking for sponsors for 2023 coming up. So if you're interested in sponsoring for 2023, sponsorships do go the entire year. So they help sponsor all of our events. And they're a great way if you need to spend some extra money before the end of the year for taxes and all that. Definitely let us know. and we'll be sure to help you out with that. So, all right. So our session today, we had Dennis Field, of course, married to Julie Field, who is one of our committee members and an active member of the community. They live up in Columbus, Ohio, where they run Greenline Creative. Again, like you just saw, one of our sponsors. So thank you guys for that. I guess, Dennis, your position there with Greenline Creative is head of brand and design.
Yep.
And I know that comes from a long line of Dennis being involved in the brand and design industry for quite some time now. So quite a bit of expertise. He says he enjoys trying out new experiences, helping use design to solve complex challenges. So I'm really interested to hear that. I know from a lot of developers, sometimes design just feels like putting makeup on a pig and sending it out there. But I know design is a lot more complex than that. So really looking forward to hearing what he has to say today. And with that being it, I'm going to hop off of here and let Dennis take the show, and then I'll be back at the end to help out with chat and all of that. So Dennis, just want to say thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your participation in the community, and look forward to hearing what you have today. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Let me share my screen, and it's going to say allow. I'm going to close this one. Boop. Switch over. Boom. Y'all should be able to see this. Cool. I'm excited to be here. Thank you all for the invite and just for having me. And this is, to kick things off, this is a part of our Foundations series, which we're calling it, where we're diving deep on just a variety of different topics for our partners, our customers, the industry as a whole, around how we design, create, inspire, and overall develop the solutions we do for people. This is, there's no clear format in which these will be delivered. This is one format, a talk, but there'll be newsletter posts, blogs, etc., like that that's coming out around these topics, all with the intent to share what we know. I think we all grow when we share and learn together, so that's the intention behind this. So this talk is really, the first talk is really centered around design. So high level, how you make it look, how can you make it look good is one aspect of it, but there's a lot more to design, which you'll hear today. And I'm really hoping this sort of elevates the thinking around design. And then there's also room to talk more tacticals once we get into that part of the talk. So a little bit more about me. So I am Dennis Field, co-founder, head of brand design here at Greenline Creative. Like Andy said, I've been designing experiences and all things design for many years now, like way before the digital product evolution in 2008. I've helped build retail experiences to people and culture experiences. So design is one of those things that and storytelling is something that I just love to do. It's a big part of kind of how we solutionize and build things here at Greenline. And I think that marriage between design thinking, and technology is really special when done right. And that's what we're going to kind of dive into here. So you can find me on LinkedIn and all those things per usual. But what is design? So that's what we're going to talk about. Since I can't see the chat, we'll just assume you all have your own version of what design is. And for some people, that's, how a color may look on a page, or where a button is placed, or how big a logo is, or what an image looks like and how it's treated. And but it goes a little bit deeper than that. There's a component of design that's people, right? We all have users that are a part of these solutions now. It's not just building a thing and, hopefully they come and use it, right? There's a component of this work that's technology focused, right? The code stacks, how you design and craft your code in a way that is scalable and it can be built upon over time, right? There's a practices side of it, which is where most people kind of think, oh, I'm going to get better at design if I just, get better at color theory or get better at typography. And sure, those are aspects to it, and, and should not be ignored, right? But when we look at some of the best designed experiences and design solutions over the last, 8 to 10 years. These organizations that I'm going to highlight have gone beyond that, right? And it's really about how they take design and sort of embed it into not just their culture, but their way of working. And if we look at Airbnb, Airbnb has redesigned essentially how we host, right? If you think of the journey of Airbnb, and I encourage you all to kind of look into this, it's really fascinating. Where they literally almost went bankrupt right before Airbnb sort of took off, because of the fact that their platform looked pretty much like a Craigslist. And nothing against Craigslist, but I can't imagine booking a place to stay on something that looked and felt a little bit creepy, right? So the founder of Airbnb said, let's try something. Let's go wild and let's strip this whole thing down and let's redesign it. Let's look at photography. Let's look at all aspects of this and see if that changes anything. And they went through the whole design experience and netted out to becoming a big transformative effort into how Airbnb is a big part of their culture and DNA today. So, for example, the Airbnb that you see here today didn't get here overnight. In fact, their whole mission is less about, hey, book this place to stay. It's really about how we host as someone who's hosting on this platform or hosting, a guest. It really opens the door to unique experiences. And during the pandemic, because of this sort of mission and philosophy and their way of building this platform inside and out, they were able to pivot really quickly when everything got shut down to launching Airbnb experiences, which essentially was, okay, if we're all about designing hosted experiences, well, what if we made online experiences that our hosts just pushed online? And they were able to pull that together in less than 3 to 4 weeks, I believe it was. And essentially that effort literally launched them into their biggest quarterly earnings to date. So, that takes a lot of work and energy, but it all starts with building and designing something that has that room and that clear North Star, and goes way beyond just, hey, does the page have enough white space and whatnot to essentially feel design aesthetically. Medium is another platform, much smaller, and in the sense that they redesigned how we consume stories, right? A lot of the times before Medium, blogs were blogs and content was pushed out on these publication platforms, but it never really felt quite like something you'd really never felt intimate, right? It never really quite felt like a story. So Medium took the approach to sort of lean in and design how they elevate content creators in a platform that put the focus on the content, right? Their whole ecosystem, from how you publish content to how you searched and categorized and sort of discovered this content, was done with design first. They were very intentional on this, and over the years you can see how we've been inspired by their content editors, how other platforms, even like Notion, has kind of stripped this stuff down to where the words matter. And that is just one way of thinking about how design has impacted how we consume stories. And one of the biggest examples here is Disney. And we've all had some relationship with Disney in some form or fashion, in our livelihoods. But a company that truly has redesigned how we tell stories. I mean, first, they develop the storytelling, philosophies in a lot of ways, and then continue to redesign and redevelop those through the technologies that they use. Obviously, Toy Story and the 3D animation and, special effects wouldn't even be what it is today without them really thinking about, how we tell stories in these various different mediums. And Disney's is a huge organization. Design is at the center of everything, from when you walk in and, you get to be consumed by that. If you ever visit any of their parks, it's designed before you even get to the location, right? I mean, you see the little Mickey Mouse as you're getting closer and closer to Disney. I mean, they're really building and designing an experience that's holistic for its end users, and they've done a really good job at that, for obvious reasons. So these are three examples of great design in various different formats and definitions around that. So I know I cannot see the chat, but I'd love to have this conversation here, maybe at the back half. But I would love for you all to take some time and think about what are some of the designs in your life that you find to be um, ideal or great in your definition. And these don't have to be some sort of application you're using or a digital thing, right? It could be, like I mentioned, the experience of going to an amusement park, right? Think about that. Like, what are some of those experiences that stand out? And I'd love to just chat about them if we have some time. The fact of the matter is, whatever that experience is that you're thinking of, I can speak to one right now that I have absolutely loved. And it's funny because QR codes have made a huge comeback. And I think a lot of it is because of, the checking out at restaurants during the pandemic, viewing menus. But it's so nice to be able to just, check out when I'm ready. I can just scan this QR code, pay for my meal through my phone, and that's that. Like not having to kind of go through here's my card and that whole process. I'm just ready to go, and I'll just scan my card and pay it out, and good to go. I think that's one that just stands out to me as something that I've really appreciated, for a lot of reasons. But I just think getting to that place of being able to do that with ease and move on with my day is really, really nice. So, but it's not easy to get there, right? And I have a number of different stories through the years of how companies have had to sort of think through this. And you don't just get here by firing up an app, right? In fact, if we look at people, for some people, it kind of just stops at research and user testing, right? And that's it. We're doing it. We're bringing the people in, our end users and our customers, and they're engaging with our product, right? And we're getting their feedback, and we're designing and iterating on that. That's part of it, and that's awesome. Some companies aren't even doing that, but if you're at least doing that, you're making a dent, right? Then there's the technology side, right? There's we're using this technology, and we're exploring the boundaries and pushing the envelopes, and we're trying new experiences with our new tech stacks, and we're refactoring our code on a regular basis. We're working with Google's box of sort of like requirements to make sure we're doing things effectively for SEO and performance and all this stuff, right? There's this whole like technology component of it, and some people just kind of focus on that, right? And that's okay, right? Then there's this practices, and this is probably like what some people think is the easiest fix. It's like, I'm going to hire the best designers and team members I possibly can. They're super skilled. And then I'm going to invest in a bunch of education and continuously up level. And, I'm just going to get better at that craft. That's part of it as well. And, there are some really great designers, and there's designers out there visually, like UI designers that are a heck of a lot better than me, and brand designers and logo designers that are a heck of a lot better than me. And that's awesome, right? Like, I think, each of these alone is making making it possible and getting you close, right? But it's not really enough, right? To create these experiences that you all love and that we are engaging with on a daily basis, you have to spend time in figuring out how to pull all these things together. The people side of this work, the technology, the practices, and how you get there with your stakeholders is the only way it's going to get done, right? I can appreciate a really great user interface, but if it's not been built with, the developer in the room, or which is, sidebar, one of the reasons I absolutely love working with Julie is we can collaborate on this stuff really closely for a lot of obvious reasons, but it's amazing to have design and development working together and talking through these things, versus just throwing something over the wall, right? The technology, knowing that, something has to, gone are the days of just building a brochure and putting it online, right? It's these platforms that are supporting these websites or these apps are robust, right? There's a lot going on behind just serving up a single page. And having those conversations around, okay, if we do this today, what's the trade-off a year from now, 6 months from now? What do we want to build towards in the future? All have to happen in one location. And then there's the continuously developing your skills, right? I mean, we call them design trends, but there's user patterns, and making sure those kind of foundational components are in place all add up to creating a really great experience. And this slide to me says a ton. This slide has some of the biggest designed sort of technological advancements over the last 10 years, right, that we get to engage with. And I think this all came to light pretty clearly over the last 2 to 3 years when, having to get groceries and things delivered through technology and apps were like a norm, right? Having to figure out how to connect with family and loved ones when you couldn't see them in person, having to teach and educate, students through a digital device, and then, finding time to entertain ourselves, with our favorite shows, and then how do you run your business now, right? And then, even down to the things like staying fit and active when we're kind of in a society where it's kind of hard to find the time to do that. All of this stuff is built, right, with really thoughtful intentionality and design. And, it's not just enough now to make that thing look good, right? It's just not enough, right? TikTok is not leading the race right now in social media just because it looks better, right? Or it has a emoji, it has this this kind of flavor to it that is geared towards a certain generation. No, there's more to that. It's that they understand who their end users are. They figured out how to serve content up in a way that it's there when you need it. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge TikTok user, but when I'm on it, it's captivating, right? They've captured something, right? But at the end of it all is, you can't just do each of those things. You can't just, build that and then they will come and you make it look good, or you have this little emoji, those are just features, right? That's not enough. And every day we're getting bombarded, as end users with information and new apps and things to try out. And to make this stuff sticky, right, it takes a ton of design to get there. So, how do we do this? And there's a whole slew of things we can talk about. I'm more than happy to chat with each of you all at some point. Find me on LinkedIn about whatever challenges and things you're struggling with in your own worlds around this. And we're not large teams. Software companies doing this work. We're small, most of us, and we have design constraints and resource constraints, which is honestly the best way to get to great design anyway. So embrace those constraints. But 3 things that you can do today to get you closer is, number 1, be one team. This is incredibly important. I remember the days of, designing in a little war room or in a little bubble and then presenting it to the customer, right? The big dog and pony show, right? The whole like madman kind of like, unveiling, or the, here's this thing we designed, hey vendor, go print it. And those sort of philosophies sort of like translated a lot unfortunately to the digital space. And it was like, hey, I'm a designer, I designed this thing, go build it, developers. And that doesn't work, right? We have to work harder at getting in the same boat and rowing together, right? So the best times, anytime that you can celebrate diversity of ideas, like bring people into the room. Like every time that I've designed something at scale, I didn't just bring the end user in. I've always brought in like random like influences like around that. For example, when I designed retail spaces, we would just bring in the he was our landscaper actually at the agency that I worked at, and we would just bring him in. We'd be like, hey, we need your thoughts on this. Like he's an end user at some point, and just getting those different perspectives really transform your ideas. And then knock those silos down, work together as a team, bring those stakeholders in the room early and often. And then what you end up having is less of the need to say, hey, this is what we're building, this is the spec sheet, this is the stuff. Like, it becomes more of a collaborative exercise and conversation. And by the time you start to building, you're already kind of like, everybody's in the know, and everything's kind of, it's just about putting it together. The other component that you can think about is just being open-minded to fresh ideas, but also that technology, right? When we look at the technology stack, I mean, the fact that EE is now an open source platform and is awesome, because I think technology should support the ideas and design that technology well, right? Like, think about how that code is being written so that it can be used and evolved and built upon in years to come, right? Like, we have a lot of conversations now about headless CMSs, and I think a lot of this comes down to the fact of needing to decouple certain aspects of this work, and really kind of leaning into this open sort of world that this is our outcome, right? And how we get there can change, and it can move around, and it can be flexible because it's gonna need to, right? These things, I mean, it's moving so fast that you're always having to build some sort of iterative state, and having a clear North Star really does help get there. And that's where this next bullet comes into play, and one that I also feel like it's important to put a lot of energy towards, which is be that storyteller. Don't just tell your customers and your stakeholders what you're going to build. This is what we're going to build, these things, these features, show them, through methods of like, literally, you could do a storyboard. You see that here where, and this is one of the things that Airbnb did, is they realized that we have this end user. What do we want their experience to be? So they literally took a page out of Pixar and built storyboards for those users of how they would interact with this platform. And some companies will do it with video. You don't have to go this detailed, but things like a prototype is a simple way to go about it. But even just having a really great conversation that you are sort of driving and spearheading that ideation and championing for that idea, and saying, hey, yeah, like this is what we want for your business, and really get them excited about it, allows you all to kind of get closer to that desired end state, because everybody in the room wants the same thing. We all want something that's going to drive the business forward, have an ROI, fun, engaging, something we can put in our portfolios, right? Something we're proud of, pouring our heart and sweat and tears into, right? Why not just, have fun and kind of get there and do this as one big team? And to get there, you kind of have to get everybody excited about where you're going. Lastly, design is not really a tool. It truly is a way of working together and solving problems. And this is where I find it to be most exciting. A lot of my work is, really bringing together, story with design and technology to fundamentally, move a business forward. So, whether that was in the past designing sales programs, enablement, to talent brand, to employee experiences and culture, everything I did and I do today is about solving this work through design. The best design is sometimes the stuff that's like, it's the in-betweens, right? And I'll have a whole section around onboarding that we'll talk about at some point. Maybe I'll come back and have that conversation, but it breaks down in those in-between moments. So couple tools to use that you can to make this a little bit easier for you. If you haven't used something like a virtual whiteboard, we use Envision here. We've been using them for a long time for both prototyping and their freehand sort of online whiteboarding tool. I use a QR code, since the bulk of you are probably sitting there on your phone right now. Might as well just click it, grab that. It'll take you right to the site. You can download it. this really does make collaboration easy. It's super efficient, super easy to use with clients. And all I do is create a virtual little war room. And, that's our kind of virtual whiteboard that we just bring people in as we go, and they kind of riff and iterate. And, we're kind of all working in the same space. And then the prototyping is really efficient here in the sense that you don't even have to have design software to use it. You can just put in your JPEGs and kind of do hot linking, and that's what I like about it. Is it's not this complex prototyping building software. You just really can make easy clickable prototypes, share them fast, share them early, share them often, share them at the right fidelity. And then another tool that we're using that we started to build, and it's in kind of working its way towards a beta. So if you're interested in it, but keeping everybody on the same page and updated along this process is really important, right? That kind of like desire and need to get it done and shipped and out the door, and that anxiety that comes with it usually comes because people don't feel like they're a part of it. They're in their unknowns, right? It's like, are we close? Where are we? Are we stuck? And the messy middle of design is something you want to kind of embrace to get there, right? And that's where something like Pulse, which we've been using with our customers and clients, has been really helpful at kind of saying, hey, log in here, you'll see where we're at. We'll share resources often in here. It's kind of a nice dashboard and way to kind of keep everybody up to date on where we are in this process, how far we need to go. And it really does create more space for that ideation when need be. I mean, timelines, budgets, those are all things that are constraints, but you can work within those. And then probably the last thing that I think is always important to keep in mind in this work is literally have fun. Like we need to keep things simple when you can, right? The best solutions are the simple solutions with that, keeping aware of that communication is really important. And you don't have to have fancy tools to do this. Like if I were to prescribe to you today, two things out of all of this to think about. Number one, communicate as much as you can. Bring them involved. Get them stakeholders involved, right? Even if it feels like a mundane thing, it's worth sharing because it could unlock another idea. It brings everybody in the room. It really does, keep people part of that creative space. And then paper is just as effective at telling a story than doing a full blown prototype, right? You can easily, if you're meeting with your customers in person, sketch this stuff out in front of them, like riff with them, like don't they want to be involved in the process. We used to have clients say, well, we're not the designers, in the room. And it still bothers me, right? Because that there's no magic to this work, right? It's just how we work that gets us there. It's not like because I went to design school and I know color theory that sure, it helps, but it doesn't transform the work, right? What transforms the work is creating something that is on point to your end user. And we all have users. Whether you're building the CMS on the back end, somebody has to go in there and use it. It's important that that is intuitive and engaging and as easy to use as possible, or they're just not going to want to use it. Or the end user who's going to be checking out or interacting with the page in some way, there's also an experience, right? So just having those conversations is really important. So the best quote that I've found to kind of sum this all up better than anything I can ever say is really around Steve Jobs, where he says design is not just what it looks and feels like, but design is how it works. And to me, that honestly encapsulates all of this, right? We can spend a lot of time on what it looks like, right? And that can be relatively easy to do in today's, tools and kind of frameworks and things that are out there that kind of get you 80% of the way at times. And how it feels like, the code and the things that people, we can relatively spin things up easier than we used to, right? Mobile frameworks are there. We don't have to roll everything out as our own, right? There's a lot of things that kind of just are a lot relatively easier now than they used to be. But how it all works together and how it's all kind of embedded into one full solution that combines the people that are involved in the process as users and creators and collaborators, that technology, right? And then ultimately pulling that all together in one way that will truly get you to this place of how it works. And when you think of the most stickiest designed solutions that you're playing with every single day, it's definitely going to be because of how it works. Like I said, this is one part of many topics we want to discuss. I definitely want to have some questions on this, but if you have anything specific you want to ask me about your own scenarios, your own challenges, like I can geek out on this stuff all the time. I dropped another QR code to our LinkedIn page. You can follow that where we'll post more things, but you can also find me through there, connect with me, and I'm happy to chat about it. So with that, I want to definitely talk, have some questions, depending on how much time we have.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Dennis. That was
Yeah.
really good. I've definitely grown to appreciate design more and more over the years. As I've developed in my, I guess, tech career and been involved in a lot of different client projects and now product work and everything, you just continue to grow your appreciation for design and how important it is to the product. Like I said, beyond just, painting pretty pictures or anything like
Yeah.
that, there's so much more to it. And especially as we, and you kind of mentioned being one team, but especially as we look at diversity and inclusion and all that, and then of course, compliance and designing for everybody, taking all that, design just exponentially grows in its importance and how much thought you need to put into it and considerations you need to give it. Again, beyond just saying, oh, that looks pretty to me, good enough kind of thing. So
Yeah.
so really appreciate your insight and your experience
Yeah.
that you brought to us today.
No problem.
We do have a few questions. I know Kenneth King has been in moderation here waiting to share his video. So Kenneth, if you're still up for it, I'm going to bring you on stage here. All right. Hopefully that works. I know everybody today, it seems like it's taking a few seconds to get everybody to share, but. All right. While we waiting for Kenneth to come on stage here, Mike asked, I might be jumping the gun, but what do you think about AI generating design?
Yeah, I've been following this a lot. It really is interesting. And I remember years ago doing a talk around the future of design and, will technology replace designers, right? And, I remember one of the things that it was a really interesting panel talk because it was, there was a part of me that's like, well, no way, but I think it's just it's another tool, right? I mean, there's some really amazing things that AI has done to speed up the process for editors and copywriting and stuff like that. So I always look at these as opportunities and something to store in your toolkit. Will I ever think it's going to replace, the stuff we just talked about, which is the best designs or having conversations with people? It's not smart enough yet to say, this is the exact solution you need for this exact problem right now. It does generate some pretty awesome stuff, right? So I think we lean into it, we see if it fits in our toolbox, and it's all free game, right? So it's kind of very similar to dev tools, right? Like they're all those frameworks I remember back in the day. It's like, what? Bootstrap, right? You just load it up and now you have all this stuff, like you can't run from it. You just embrace its effectiveness.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think every industry I've been involved in, that's always been a conversation. Before this, I was in photography, and I mean, just Photoshop alone, or is Photoshop going to kill photographers because you don't need it now? And lo and behold, there's still many photographers out there making pretty good living, and then as a developer, are these AI tools going to, or like Wix sites and everything? You don't need developers anymore, right? But lo and behold, we still have tons of people developing.
Exactly.
So I mean, it goes across all the industries, and there's always going to be that extra edge.
Yep.
All right, Kenneth did not come online, so I think it was either a mistake or we already answered his question. So Mike also asked, what do you think about a designer versus someone who does UX? Okay, so they used to kind of be combined, seems user experience jobs have grown and overtaken design jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's, from my perspective, there's just a lot of ways people frame these roles, right? I think the biggest one is I'm looking for a UX designer, and then that UX designer has to be a user interface designer, but also a front end developer, right? I mean, that's kind of like the stereotypical like UX
Right.
designers are pushing into it, but the purists, right? A pure UX designer isn't even visually designing. They're sitting in rooms, they're running focus groups. I remember getting exposure to some of these really early um, companies who were going through the digital transformation, and these UX teams didn't even have tools. They were literally creating prototypes in Excel sheets. They were just like filling out like quadrant or like the cells to sort of make some UI, and I'm like, what? That's what you're doing, man. Feel sorry for you. But that's a whole different discipline. So I think like part of this is getting clear, as an industry on like what is a UX designer versus a UI designer versus a experience designer, right? Like there's so many different versions of it. So what I would, I guess to sum up this answer, I think I think there I think for me personally, I think where the value of this work comes in, and if this person is, it's gonna come in at that strategic level, right? Like wherever you can be a thought partner and strategic partner in a business is where the design thinking and this sort of design beyond the aesthetics, is gonna be more effective. I don't think that answered your question, Mike, specifically, but I think there's just a lot of convolutedness on what these job recs say right now around we're looking for a designer. What does that mean? So
I think, would you say that also, some of it plays into the size of the company and what the
yeah, oh
focus
for
of the
sure,
company
for
is
sure,
too.
for
I
sure.
mean, so, a lot of our community is developers, and we see that with front end, back end
Yep.
developers.
Yeah.
You have a smaller company that's just a few people, and they just want a developer to build websites. You want a
Yeah.
larger company, and they want somebody that can do, database administration, back development, DevOps, front end
Yep.
engineer, and even front end engineer is broken out. So you have multiple layers just according to how big the company is, how much detail you need.
Yep.
So for
100%.
sure.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I've got a buddy actually down the street that does UX design, and he's like you were saying, he works for a pretty large startup company,
Mm-hmm.
and he does no actual design. It's all
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
focus groups, everything. He might sketch out some stuff or work with the designer to move stuff around or give
Mm-hmm.
some suggestions. But as a UX designer, he's not, as I like to say, drawing the pretty pictures,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not what he's doing. So yeah.
No.
All right. Oliver just asked, the best designs or interactions are ones you don't even notice, which is why I'm struggling to think of designs or interactions that I really like. So
Yeah.
that's actually a
Yeah.
good thing. And so that brings us
Yeah.
back to, I wrote that down that we were going to come back to that. So does anybody have any designs that they've really liked or appreciated or have made an impact on them that they want to share or talk about with Dennis here or with everybody? Tom Yeager says AeroPress. So Tom, do you are you saying like the design of the AeroPress or their marketing? Or am I missing something? It's Caroline saying I like plumbing. Yeah. Okay, so the design of the product. So awesome.
Nice. Yeah, to your point, Oliver, like I mean that is like the end goal, right? I mean, design stands out when it's done when bad design is on full display when you notice it, right? I mean it's when it's working, just like and when I say design, I think of like the code. It's end to end, right? Like it's not just visually design, right? It's that whole experience. You know it when it breaks. When it works, that's what you want. So
Amy says of course, commercials for iPhones, very slick and shiny.
yes.
Everyone likes Mac marketing.
I love that they're bringing back some of the old iPod flavor to their commercials. I don't know if you all noticed that. I'm like, oh, they're bringing it back. If you want to I mean, I do this every now and then. People kind of laugh at me about this, but watch the Steve Jobs iPhone release from '08 and just watch that keynote. It's on YouTube. Even to this day, it's mind blowing on just how transformative that moment is, and then to be able to look at it and like to know that that phone didn't have a whole lot to it. Like it was
Yeah.
a pretty stripped down device to compared to what things are today, but it's the design of that whole moment and the way they delivered that keynote that really just, I mean, it's transformed the world, right? So it's
An
just
iPod,
revolutionary.
an iPod, a browser, a
Yeah,
phone, an
yeah,
iPad, a browser, a phone.
yeah, yeah. It's very clear, and you're just like, I guess I need this. I need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So,
And that's such a good point with design because I had a Windows mobile phone before that, and I could do everything on that mobile Windows mobile phone that you could do on the iPhone when it released and more.
mm-hmm.
And in fact, when I had it, people knew and like the iPhone was coming out, and I was like, "Is that the iPhone?" I'm like, "No, this is I've had this for a year now."
Yeah.
And but the design of it, people didn't like the design, and
Mm-hmm.
if you've ever been on Windows Mobile, it wasn't the smoothest experience, but
Yeah.
it allowed us, functionality wise, I got everything done I wanted on it. But when you
Mm-hmm.
handed it to people just to use, they were like, "Ugh, I don't
Yeah.
want this." But
Yeah.
even if people didn't care about functionality, when you handed them an iPhone, they were like, "Oh, this is nice. This is smooth." And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, both very large corporations, lots of money went into those products,
Yep.
and one just because of design, I mean, it's launched an entire, changed the world basically,
Yeah.
based
Yeah.
on the design of it. So
Absolutely. I remember the first time like going out of BlackBerry, and then I was like, maybe I'll get this Android one because it was when Verizon didn't have the iPhone. So I was like, I'll go with this, and I remember just like scrolling on. I was like, it's just not the same. I can't. It's just the scroll wasn't. Everything just wasn't quite there. I was like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait it out.
yeah.
So it does all add up.
John says Webflow content, especially their tutorials are
Mm,
genius. I have not
yeah.
done a lot of Webflow. I know
Yeah.
you guys are Webflow partners now.
Yeah.
We
That's
won't
it.
talk too much about that at the e-conference.
Yeah, we won't, but
Yeah.
their training content is really good. I mean, the videos are just comical. It's well done.
Good.
It really
I'll look
educates.
into that more. Yeah.
Yeah, the 101 aspects of what they create is it's really good. It goes back to like what you were saying too about there's a client for everyone. There's a customer for everyone, and for some people who've never opened up a traditional code editor, right? And they're now like thrown into Webflow or some other thing, right? It's like, what is this all like? The same way we render pages is the same in all these tools, right? It's the
Mhm.
interface that we're engaging with to do that is very different. So they still have to teach, like how to actually develop in this tool. But they do it in a way that I think for someone who's going beyond a Wix, I think that really does engage that audience. So it's comical.
Sure. All right. Amy just Googled Webflow, so we've got to move away from conversation about other CMSs here. So,
Yes.
like that probably take. Yeah, Caroline. Yeah, we'll putting on my Expression Engine team hat now, not my e-conference hat. Yeah, we'll look at marketing. So, or Webflow tutorials and everything. We actually are working on that. Just as again, my e team hat on right now.
Oh, nice.
We mentioned that with the docs and stuff that we're really working on. What we'd like to say, making people more successful,
Mm-hmm.
and making it easier to understand the docs and understand how to do stuff. So
That's cool. That's cool.
that's definitely a big part, and and that's another. Well, we won't get into that right now, but All right. Any oh, we got some more Q&A.
Oh.
Oliver said, "Oh, two great designs that I've thought of is PlayStation controller and the Uber app."
Nice. Yes. The it's funny. I just moved over to an Xbox from PlayStation, and I agree with you on this controller thing. Like, there's something about their controller versus an Xbox controller. I'm like, even like it's been 3-4 months or so now. I'm just like, I still can't quite get it down. Form factors, right? Like user patterns, like those are all things we have to keep in mind when we're thinking about great design, right? That's, I remember reviewing portfolios when we in the we're gonna make a cool design, but the navigation is at the bottom of the page. I remember seeing that one time, going, "Why are you doing that? Like, it looks cool, but no one's doing that." So, all those things, that memory that we kind of get programmed to, really does matter. And then Uber, right? I put that in the Airbnb bucket of, those two products alone without design. I don't think they would nearly be as successful because they go against everyone's childhood lessons of like never jump in a car with strangers and don't live in a house with a stranger, but somehow they managed to do both. So
All right. Okay. Any other questions or anything? All right, Tom, if you're listening, go ahead and get ready to hop on here for our EE update. But Dennis, just want to say thank you again so much for being a part of this, being a part of our community. Again, I know your bride, Julie, has been a part of it for a while and has contributed much, especially to the conference this year. And you guys as sponsors, you guys make this happen. And really appreciate that and appreciate you taking your time to do this today. So everybody definitely check out Greenline Creative, give Dennis and Julie some shout outs, and make sure you tag Dennis on your social media platforms of choice, I guess, except for TikTok because he's not there, but everywhere else, definitely reach out to him and let everybody know how awesome he was today and thank him for his time. Awesome. So Dennis, thank you so much. Really appreciate you and all that you guys do. So
likewise, really appreciate it.
That was awesome.
Thank you all. Yep. Thank you.
See you, Dennis.